Hi, so today I'm going to be replacing the stove rope. I'm going to be replacing the seal on the door of this Vision Midi stove. It's a Stovax one. It's not brilliant anyway because it tends to leak into the room when you open the door, but anyway, it needs fixing. If we look at the telltale signs, see this corner, you probably let me bring the camera down. In this corner you can see it's gone very brown. It started to do that. It didn't always used to do that. So the glass is going brown, and that means that we've got a problem. And there's a bit of a leak going on. If it's always done it, maybe not. But when it starts doing that, then you know something's not quite right. So what we're going to do is, first and foremost, we're going to fetch the door off, take it into the garage, and see if we can fix it. So the door, normally easy enough to remove. Open it, lift it up, it should come up. Just like that. And we can take it carefully into the garage, or preferably outside because it's going to make a mess. So now we've got it in here, we can start to have a look at this, and you can see that it's gone very hard, this stuff that's on here, and where it was leaking, you can feel that it's flat and it's absolutely solid. You hear that? So it needs replacing, and all we really need to do is to physically, well, even the tapes kaput. You'll find that there's a gap in the middle, and this is where you can start to remove this from. Now when you do this, you're going to need to wear a mask because there's all sorts of dust and stuff, but you can see it comes off pretty easily. So what I'll do is pop a mask on and pull the rest of it off. Okay, so now that's off, what's left is the remnants of the old glue. It's fairly loose in here. You get an old screwdriver and you can remove that. So I want to clean all that off. There's all the stuff here. It's actually quite loose, but again, put the mask on and use something like an old screwdriver and clean that out. So now that's cleaned out, all the bits are loose. What I'm going to do is going to take this and I'm just going to tip it in the bin. Again, I'm going to wear a mask for that. Okay, that's done. So the final thing, take a wire brush and we can use that to clean up the channel. So to be honest, it's pretty clean here now. So I'm just going to give it a quick brush around with a mask on, and then I'm going to take it to the bin, empty any dust out, and then we're ready for the next stage, which is putting the new one in. Okay, so that's done. If I bring you down here, have a look. You can see that that channel's nice and clean now. And it's all ready for the next stage. If you end up leaving lumps and bumps and things in it, then what's going to happen is the rope is going to go over the lumps and bumps, and you're going to get places where it doesn't seal properly. So you really need to get that nice and clean before you go any further. So this is the new stuff. Looks pretty thick, doesn't it, compared to what's in there? You can try it in the gap and you see it fits quite nicely in there. For Stovax, it looks like they're usually 14mm, these things, but check on your instructions. Depending on what stove you've got and what make it is, always just double check that you've got the right size. You don't want it to be leaking. And this one's tied at both ends to stop it fraying, but you also get a piece of tape. Bit mean really, just a little bit of tape so that you can seal up the ends when you've measured it, because what you're going to do next is to fit it in and to put it around, to measure how big it needs to be, and then we can cut it to the right size. So first things first, I'm going to take the tape they're giving me, fold it in half and cut it down the middle so that I've got two pieces of equally sized tape. Now what I want to do is take one end, and I'm going to wrap the sticky tape around it, and then I'm going to cut it so they get a nice flat end, because at the moment, look, it's all frayed. That's no good to me. So here we go. I take the backing off the tape, and then I'm going to wrap this round just inside where there's plenty of rope. You can measure it on there, but this should give you a lot more than you really need. So I'm wrapping that round It goes around a couple of times. Okay, so there's one end. All I'm going to do is going to take that, I'm going to snip it halfway down so I'll get one nice neat end. Okay, there we are, nice and flat, nice and neat, ready to go. So next thing to do is to measure it. So I'm putting this in the middle and I'm putting the rope in. Now there's no glue involved at this stage. There is a pot of glue that comes with it, but don't put it in yet. So I'm feeding that in as it will be, just to get the length. So make sure you go around all the corners as you will when you're putting it on for real. Squash it all in there, don't just loop it around and check it. You want a nice accurate measurement. Tuck it in. Now that I've been round, I'm just going to go around like this and just make sure that there's no lumps and bumps, and make sure that it's stretched out as it needs to be. I don't want it to be, there we go, got a little bit out there. I don't want any sort of loops in there because then that won't stick in properly when I come to glue it. So there we go, saved about a centimetre's worth there. So that's all nice and tight now, fits in just nicely. I'm not pulling it tight, I'm just making sure that it sits in there nicely. Next thing to do is to chop the end. You can see where it overlaps, and what I'm going to do, I'm not going to chop it to the right length because I want to do this trick where I use the tape and cut it in half again. So what I do is cut it to the other end of the tape. Okay, so the end of the tape that's in, so it's going to leave me with a little bit hanging over, and that way when I put the tape on I'll cut it in half and it'll match in theory. So there we go, cut it there, and then I can put the tape on. Now as you can see, the tape, this particular rope splays out a lot when you cut it, so in hindsight you might want to put the tape on before you cut it. Just about got away. The problem is they only give you one set of tape, so there's no room for any mistakes. So that's on now. I just chop it across there, and I've got two nice neat ends there which go together in the middle. So that's all done, ready for gluing. So here's the glue. So you give it a good shake, it says on the bottom, give it a good shake. So do this, and then I'm going to put it into the groove, and we'll put the rope in. So here we go. Okay, so now I can take the rope, now starting in the middle, these things go at the bottom in the middle, and make sure the bit where it joins, if I can find it, goes against the glass if you like, and that way it won't come undone. So just like we did last time, pushing it in, this time it's going into the glue. I'm trying to put it on the outside so it doesn't drop into the glue and get it all over my hands, because this stuff's not particularly nice to have in contact with your skin. Now I've come to the end again, and again I'm finding the end wherever it is. Not easy. Where is it? It's there, and that goes in against on the glass side so that it's not sticking up. Okay, that is now in place. So I'm going to go around one more time. I'm just going to make sure this is all seated properly so that it's nice and flat. So there's one thing I forgot to mention there, is that you should really wear gloves to do this job. Now I was going to wear gloves and then I forgot, so try and remember to wear gloves. I think it's my age. Anyway, moving on. So now for the confusing part. It's glued in place. If you look at the instructions for the stove, it says put this in place and then leave it for 12 hours. If you look at the instructions on the glue, it says put this in place, put the door back on, shut it, then leave it for 12 hours. Other instructions I've seen say put it on, leave it for 3 hours, and then put it on the stove, leave it for 12 hours, and then light a fire. So I'm going to go for that one because it's kind of in the middle. So, and it makes sense. Put it on for 3 hours. After 3 hours, this will be relatively set, so I can put the door on without the risk of this falling off, and then I can shut the door while the glue is still relatively soft, and it'll settle it so that it's nice and flat against the door, and that shutting the door will hold it in place. And then after 12 hours the glue should be relatively set. You can then cure the glue by having a set of small fires slowly getting hotter so that it sets that glue. So that's what I'll do. Leave this for 3 hours, come back later. Right, so it's been 3 hours, brought the door back in, let's put it back on. That was easy enough. Now it's probably going to be more difficult to shut. Let's see. In fact, it shuts. That's quite nice. The next thing to do is to do what they call the paper test. You stick a piece of paper. See, I've stuck a piece of paper in there, and when you pull it out, it should be really quite stiff. That means that's good. And you need to do that all the way around. So I can do it at the bottom. It's a bit more difficult because there's lots of things hanging around in the way. Is that done? So again, that's quite stiff, and that's what we're going to do, that all the way around, and make sure that you've got a good seal. Leave that now 12 hours, and then we'll light a few fires in. But that's basically done. So hopefully this was useful. Feel free to subscribe if you liked it. Otherwise, maybe I'll see you next time.